Alright, I'm back with chapter 21, and it says the birth of Isaac. It says, the Lord visited Sarah, as he had said. The Lord said to Sarah, as he had promised, and Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age. At the time of which God had spoken to him, Abraham called the name of his son, who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. Of course, like I've told y'all a couple chapters back, you learn, of course, Abraham is the father of all the nations. The Jews came out of Isaac, the Muslims came out of Ishmael. So, of course, you learn about that here in the Old Testament. Let's see what I'll tell that. So Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac, and Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old. And as God had commanded him, Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. God protects Hagar and Ishmael. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, cast out the slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. See, that's why the Jews and Muslims hate each other, because, like I said, it all started with Isaac and Ishmael, pretty much. I mean, Isaac and Ishmael had a lot of tension between them. I mean, they just read to you right here in verse 10. It says, so she said to Abraham, cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. So ever since then, right there, right there in verse 10, the Jews and Muslims have always been at odds with each other. Because like I said, Abraham's father of all nations. The Jews came out of Isaac, and the Muslims came out of Ishmael. Ever since Genesis, they've always been at war with each other, per se. Here in verse 10. Moving on to verse 11, it says, and the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named, which is Israel today, the Jews. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman, also because he is your offspring, who are the Muslims today, the Muslim nations. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread in the skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot. For she said, let me not look on the death of the child. And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with a bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So think about that real quick. Egypt's a Muslim nation, so think about that. It's very, very interesting things. Like I said, Abraham's the father of all nations. The Jews came out of Isaac. Muslims came out of Ishmael. And they've been at odds ever since Genesis, ever since the creation of the world, pretty much. So it's just very interesting. It says, a treaty with Abimelech. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my descendants, or with my posterity, but as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. When Abraham reproved Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? And he said, these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Philistines, that would be where Gaza is at today. Palestinians. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God, Jesus Christ, of course, the one true God. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines, which is where God is at today, the Palestinians. So anyway, that's chapter 21, and I will be right back with chapter 22 next.